And welcome back to Career Build Series, episode number 40. And so I did a little work off screen. I didn't intend to do it off screen on the new helicopter, but OBS had a little bit of a crash, and so I lost that. So let's go ahead and look at where I am on the helicopter. So a little bit of work done here. What I did was I put in an old microcontroller, got the engine up and running. Now, we do not need a tail rotor, so pretty simple physics here. As the rotor moves one direction, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the fuselage wants to move the opposite direction. And so that's one of the reasons why you have a tail rotor. That's why everybody, or a lot of people in game, will build coaxes so they don't have to think of the more difficult solutions of how to fix their build without using a coax. I do some coaxes myself sometimes. They're funsy sometimes. You can do tandems, all sorts of reasons, all sorts of ways to try to counteract this torque. Another thing you can do is if you have dual propellers like this, you can use the pitch of the propeller. So if the craft wants to yaw to the right, well, guess what? You put a positive pitch on this prop and a negative one on this one, it will counteract the yaw. And so pretty simple. All I do is I hook up the yaw component through the gyro. The gyro is not junk. The gyro just fixes minor problems. You need to make sure you fix most of the problems with your engineering. And then the stabilized yaw goes in here and it goes to the two propellers. And so that will counteract that. And so what I'm going to do here as well is, what's this? Let's see. So what I'm going to do here is port's going to go in a port here. And let's get rid of this as well. Starboard's going to go in here. I'll show you what I'm working with here or try to catch you up to where we are. That's going to go there. And then I have a throttle going in here. And I'll show you this little microcontroller. Pretty simple microcontroller. I shall go in here and show it to you. So in this microcontroller, we have the yaw from the gyro. So essentially what it's doing is it's smoothing off of the seat. So we take the left-right from the seat, we put it through the gyro will smooth. And then I have a clamp. It's clamping it so that it only goes to negative 0.3 and positive 0.3. And part of the reason for that is I don't need it to be doing big swings. Also, I want to make sure that I can add some pitch here, and that's so that we can go forward. So we can also use the collective to go forward. And so let's go ahead and let's look at this here. And so what I think we'll do is, first thing we need to do is limit this. So when we get up to speed, the actual, when we're at full blade pitch, we're going to be going fast enough, we'll get enough airflow over our tail surface. We won't have to worry about utilizing this differential anymore. But what will happen is when I go full blade pitch, say 100% blade pitch, one side is not going to be able to go more than 100%, right? And so, but we're still going to be able to get a negative on this side. So it will essentially be, let me see, 0.3. Yeah, so it'll essentially be 100 on one side and 70 on the other side, and that will still be more than enough yaw force. It will just be, won't be both sides. And so I put this function in to do it. So let's actually show you that before I actually do the other blade pitch. So let's go ahead and we'll start this sucker up. I just reconnected this, so we'll make sure that it actually works. I haven't tested it in a sec. All right, we'll jump in. Let's go ahead. I think 2 starts us up. Infinite electricity has to be on right now. All right, so it auto clutches. It's going to go through a couple start cycles because I don't have an idle RPS set. I just have the max level RPS. And so, but as you can see, my hands are off it. As you can see, it's not yawing, and that's because the two propellers, one is going forward, one is going in reverse. It's counteracting that yaw force. And I have not touched a single value on the gyro. Most likely the sensitivity is too high, but as you can see, it's working fine, no problem. And if I want to go left, I just press left, and so the propeller on the left side is going in reverse, and the propeller on the right side is going forward. As you can see, we're now rotating. Very simple. All right, good. Let's bring it back on the workbench. So you've seen that. So now what I've done is I've hooked up a throttle here, and I'm actually just going to drag the percentage down to probably like 10%, just to slow the speed down. I don't want the blades to move too fast. It overloads the engine too fast. So let's go back in here. I just need to change the functions up. So let's go function, and I just need the 3 function. That's all. I only need 2 of them anyway. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this clamp, put it in here, grab another one here, copy this clamp, put it in here. All that's different is one is negative, one's positive. As you can see here, that is a regular x. That is the inversion of the negative x. And I'm just going to hook them up so that I can actually see what they're doing now. All right, good. And so those are going to go like that. All right, good. So now that is set up again. So what we need to do is now add the blade pitch. So it's pretty simple. It's going to be right here. It's going to be x plus, what's the next one? Should be y. Y, x plus y. I pressed the plus key, but it didn't like it to do it. And that's going to be x plus y up here. All right, so now that's going to add in the y component, which is blade pitch. So I'm going to add blade pitch. This is what's actually going to help me to go faster, is by actually pitching the collective. So everything's being done with collective here. I probably could do it with roll, but this works best for me, and I like this best to do it like this. So that's hooked up. Make sure everything's connected. It is. All right. So now what we should be able to do is we should be able to have the same situation where the pitch on these propellers are giving us our yaw effect, but we can also push up on the throttle. You know what? Let's do this really quick before I actually do that. Let's grab a linear speed sensor. And what we'll do is, I don't need to hook it into this dial, but I will. All right, so now that's hooked up. And I screwed up the linear speed because it's going to be showing up instead of forward. That's great. Let's fix that. I saw the slot where I wanted it, and I actually just didn't put it there. Let's go like this. Trying to see, make sure we're there. Okay, that's good. All right, so that's facing forward now, and that will read. And so we can see what our speed is. All right, good. So we'll get 2 going. Now, I do not have auto hover button connected whatsoever. So there is, so the auto hover button is not selectable. This is without auto hover, right? Now, why does my aircraft fly well with the stock gyro that a lot of people say is terrible, don't even bother using it? Because my aircraft is built properly. The center of lift is right around the center of gravity, which gives it inherent stability. Right, that's why mine is working fine pretty much out of the box with the stock gyro, is because it's set up correctly to start with. And I'm not asking the gyro to do ridiculous things. Let's start adding some propeller. And that's going to be... Now, generally, full propeller is going to overtax the engine. It's actually not going to be as fast. So this is fine. The reason why it's doing this is the rotor can no longer take care of our flight once we get up to a certain speed. It does not have enough authority. And so what we need to do is we need to start adding in things like our physical control surface. Once we hit about 60 knots, these control surfaces are going to start to do the majority of our work. And so I'm hooking these up now, which I should have hooked them up before, but I forgot. And so roll. Now, roll is also going to be these, so I need to make another microcontroller. Let's actually, oh, don't do that. Let's do this, copy this. And we'll just take this one as well, and I'll just reconfigure this one. All right, so we'll go in here. This is now going to be Elevon control. Did I spell Elevon right? I don't know if I spelled Elevon right, but Elevon is it's the combination of the elevator, which is what generally does pitch, and the aileron, which generally does roll. You're having it do both, and so that's giving you an Elevon. So this is going to be the pitch gyro. So pitch from the gyro. This is going to be here. This is going to be roll from the gyro. Okay, and then we're going to do port and starboard. That's fine. Those can stay the same. Okay, good. So now we have the pitch from the gyro. We can get rid of these clamps here. All right, actually, yeah, that's fine. And so what I want to do is I want to clamp. Do I want to clamp these? Probably not, actually. Let's not clamp them. So all I want to do is x plus y. One of these is going to have to be negative. I haven't figured it out yet. So x plus y. We'll figure it out here in a second. So We're adding our roll and our pitch together. They're going port and starboard. And that's going to allow our elevators to control both. Now, one of the reasons I did this was these are already oversized. They're probably bigger than I need. And I don't like the little fins for ailerons. And so these are way oversized, certainly for ailerons. So by doing that, these are probably already oversized, so I can just add these in. And so let's go ahead and hook these up. I need to merge that first. Merge you. Good. And then start hooking it up. So this is going to be gyro pitch. Yep. So once we hit that speed, the rotors are no longer doing a great job of keeping us stable. We need to start adding control surfaces, which you'll actually notice in a lot of these aircraft. They will add control surfaces as well. That's starboard. This is port. All right, good. So those are in. And so let's go test them. One of them is going to have to get an inversion, so we'll fix that. I also need to add yaw onto the fins there. All right, so pitch. They both should come up. They do. As you can see, both elevators come up. Now I'm going to let them center. I hate the light. When the craft is white, the lights are too bright, and if it's too dark, if I just shut them off. So, okay, so now I'm pressing right. So I want to roll right. So I want the port side to come down. That's going to increase lift. The starboard side should be going up to decrease lift. So the starboard side needs a negative roll. Pretty simple. All right, so test is over. Sometimes these are to test. So negative roll. So right here is roll is y. So I just need a negative y. That sets that up. Let's do that. Let's hook up the gyro yaw right here. So where you at? Gyro yaw. Gyro yaw. These get this. I need to test these out. Make sure these are all rocking and rolling the correct orientation. But now once we speed up enough with the propellers pushing us, those control surfaces will give us stability and ability to work. So we're going to yaw right, and they're all backwards. Of course they are. I picked one side, and they were all backwards. Of course they were. So here we are pitching up, pitching down. Let's roll right. So the port side should go down. The starboard side should come up. It does. Opposite. The other way. Now let's do a combination. So I'm going to pitch and roll, as you can see. That's going to cause us to both pitch up and roll to the left. All right, perfect. So that's working well there. All right, nice. And so I just need to invert all the yaws, and I could do it through a function, but what I'm going to do is actually come in here. It's a little tedious, but I'm going to cut you. So all of these need to be inverted. Cut, invert. Cut, invert, and there we go. All right, now these just need to be merged back up, and we should be rocking and rolling here. And this one didn't get attached. So let's try it again. See how they're all flashing? We know they're all connected. So let's try that now. So if I want to yaw to the right, the tail, the back of that fin should come right. As you can see, they all do. They're all moving in the same orientation, and we know the rest is good. You notice how they're jittering already? That means the gyro sensitivity is too high. A lot of people ask, why is my aircraft wigging out with the gyro? Sensitivity is too high. It's like having too high of a p-value. All right, so once we get up to enough RPS, the blades have enough effectiveness. That's why we initially start that torquing effect, and then the propellers actually have enough air going over them, or moving enough air to be able to counteract that now. All right, so now we should be able to hopefully increase this. I'm going to go to about 20% here. Generally, 20 to 30 is where our best speed is going to be. And as you can see, we're nice and stable now because the actual control surfaces are taking over the heavy lifting of actually keeping our pitch and our roll stable. Let's roll. As you can see, roll's working well. Let's yaw. Roll, pitch, yaw. I'm going to do a bunch at once, see if I can't get this to misbehave. And as you can see, it does not want to misbehave. It's behaving quite well. All right. What is our speed? So we're going about 60 knots right now. More than that, we're going about 80 knots at 23. Let's go up to 30, see if we go faster. As you can see, we're continuing to go up. So there's 53. It's about 2, so we're talking about 108 knots. Pretty good speed for a helicopter. Let's go up some more. 40. And that's about, what's that, 57. That's about 114. So we still have, our engine is actually underutilized at the moment if I'm using this much prop, but that's not a huge deal. So right there, that's about 50. What are we still getting? About 57, 58. So we're probably already past our max speed setting, so it's probably somewhere in the 40s, which is fine. Because what we can do is we can start taxing our engine. We can start putting extra load on our engine, which causes our RPS to go down, which causes it to save fuel. That tends to be how I like to do it. I like to have my max speed somewhere in the middle, and then the max performance is up, and that's how it is in real life. When you increase your blade pitch, you're putting more load in your engine, but you're also moving more air, and so your speed will go down, but your efficiency will go up, and it will save you fuel. Actually, we're doing, whoa, because I'm diving. Let's make sure it's not because of the dive. I would bet it was because I was diving. I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. All right, so one thing you do is every time you do a pitch power setting, you have to do trim. So let's trim this out. I want to fly about the horizon, see where we're at. Yep, so that should be going down. It is. Okay, so somewhere in the neighborhood of like around 40%. Let's go to 40. Yeah, we'll just go right to 40. About 40 there. And that should give us best speed. So I think it was around... So I did a pitch or a power setting. I did both. I can't tell my... Because it's so friggin' hazy out. Let's fix this. Get rid of this fog. Can't see my horizon. There we go. So there's my horizon. As you can see, we're up to 59. So I'll be accurate with this. I'll do 59 times 1.943844. So that's 114.68 knots. So I'm happy with that. Is it the bestest ever? No. One thing I could do is try to disconnect the rotor and take off some of take off some of the rotor's energy, but I don't really want to do that, I don't think. I think that's a plenty of speed. I would like a little bit more speed, but that's something I can tweak. I can tweak and work with that. I'm not liking this dash sticking in front of me like that. I might fix it and just stick it out here more. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. So I'll have to decide this. But this is like literally hands off. All right, so there's no auto hover. A lot of people always fly with auto hover on, and the only way their aircraft is ever stable is if auto hover's on. Your aircraft is not stable. It's not built essentially properly if it won't fly without you. You know, right now my hands are off the controls, and as you see, it's not going crazy. All right, that means that this aircraft is balanced. You know, center of thrust is about the center of lift. My center of thrust on the actual propeller, so I was initially talking about the center of lift right there, is actually in a helicopter is from the rotors. So the center of lift is above the center of gravity. That's what our rotors are doing. The center of thrust is from these propellers mainly, and they are also in line with our center of gravity. And because of that, as you notice, it's not trying to, every time I, give it more propeller pitch on my propellers, it's not trying to pitch my nose up or down, because they're pretty much in line with center of gravity. If you build your craft correctly, the gyro will have no problem, stock gyro, no problem keeping your craft working well. Like, as you notice, I've had no issues, no craziness, no nonsense. It's working well. Now, one thing I could do is, let's look. I took it off. So let me quickly bring this back in the workshop once we get close. But I really like, this is flying well. Has a good capacity. It's not enormous. Let's do something really quick here. So let's go bring the propellers back. I'm really not stressing my engine too much. I won't know until I go back and put an RPS gauge on there. So let's see. So now we're back into like a helicopter mode. The propellers aren't doing anything for us. It really flies beautifully already. And I have done very little to it. So I'll put an autopilot in there. I'm going to try to build most of it on screen. I'm kind of due for a redo. Things like bearing panel, I'll just use the old bearing panel. But I think I'm going to rebuild the autopilot. Instead of trying to just kind of, grab it off something else. All right, nice. Slow down. There we go. All right, nice. So let's go ahead and grab this in the bench. I want to put another dial in here. I want to see what my RPS is. All right, so we can do some further gearing with this. So this is working well. So let's go ahead and actually save this as CBS 23 Helo working. And so I like to make one that's called working, that is working well. And then if I break something, I can go back. The worst case, I can go back to my working one, and I'm all set to go. So this is speed in meters per second. This one is going to be RPS. Okay, good. And so let's go ahead and we will grab the RPS off of any of these crankshafts here. I have it set to 10, I believe. Is it 10? I can't remember where I set it. I think I set it to 10 in the microcontroller. So we'll see what it sets to. Again, it's doing that because the throttle's too high to start with. I think I have it set to 20. All right, so it's set to 20. All right, so now I answered a bunch of questions, people asking for help this week, and one of them was, you know, my aircraft or my vehicle is overheating. How do I fix it? And the first question I always ask is, what is your RPS? What is your gear ratios? And often, if the answer is, I don't have any gears. And so what a gear is doing is you're trading torque for RPS. And the lower your RPS, the less fuel you're burning, and the lower the lower the amount of heat you're creating. So, solved a couple problems for you. I shouldn't have done that. Whatever. I need to do that anyway, so I'm going to do it. I was going to say I'm making 2 changes at once, which I tend not to do. All right, so let's look at our gearing. So currently we have a 3-to-1 gear ratio here, and this is a 1-to-1. So it's a 3-to-1. This is a 1-to-1, so we have a straight up 3-to-1 gear ratio. And so the reason why this is 20 is because this engine is turning at 20. The max rotor speed I want is 60. So 20 times 3, 60. And so what we can do here instead is let's try 10 and do a 6-to-1. So let's try that. So let's go to 2-to-1. So right there, that's 3-to-1. There, let's go ahead and change the engine panel here. So instead of running at, like currently, where am I at here? Right here, all I have is a constant number of 20. That will change eventually, but currently that's 20. Let's make it 10. And now we should be able to run the engine around 10. Now it's not always perfectly 100% just that easy to switch out. Sometimes it is, depending upon, how much load you're putting on your engine and whatnot. But now we're asking my engine, hey, only give me 10 RPS. And what we're doing is we're gearing more to give us around the same. All right, so let's look at the RPS. So our RPS should only go up around 10. Might be less now, but let's see if it makes it up to 10. So we have a lot higher gear ratio now. We went from a 3-to-1 to a 6-to-1, so we doubled our gearing. Now, what's this doing? It's reducing our RPS, which is reducing our heat. It's reducing our RPS, which is reducing our fuel burn. Both of these things are our buddy, because we're not going to be able to fit a ton of cooling in here. We don't have a lot of space. And so by getting the RPS down with gearing, we're not required to have as much cooling. We're also not burning as much fuel. Burning fuel is what's causing your heat. And so if we look here, we're a little bit of a loss because we were at a full 20 before. And because we're at a full 20, we're getting 60 out of there. So we're probably not going to be able to go as fast. I'm going to need to do some tweakage. Let's go ahead, go to, what was it, about 40 was our best speed. So let's go up to 40 here. Now let's see where our best speed is now. Our engine is not as powerful, and the reason we've reduced our torque. And so it's not always 100% linear on that. So we're probably going to get a slower speed. That's fine. I can work with this and tweak it. So we're getting something like a 57 meters per second was our best. Right there, we're at 47. Now we need to also understand this. We're asking a lot out of our engine. Now, the more blades you add, think of it this way, right? If I asked you to paddle a canoe, and I had said, hey, put an oar in one hand and paddle the canoe, okay? or you have one oar, paddle a canoe, right? You're using both hands, you're paddling the canoe, right? Your two arms are your engine, essentially, right? And you're paddling a canoe with one oar. Well, guess what? Because you're using both arms, you can probably go pretty fast. Now I say, okay, I'm giving you a second oar, same size oar and everything, but you need to put that in your other arm. So now you have one oar in each arm. Well, guess what? You're not going to be able to go as fast because you still have the same amount of power, right? But you're splitting it by more oars. Same thing with adding more blades. So it might look cool to have a ton of blades, and the reason I have this many blades is the real one has this many blades. Often they're adding more blades for efficiency. They're trying to reduce their RPS, or RPM, to try to increase the fuel economy. That's what they tend to be doing. It's generally an efficiency thing. By decreasing your blade count, you can move the blades faster, which means you can get you're putting less load on the engine, which means you can get a higher RPM, and you can burn more fuel, and you're going to be able to go faster because you have less load on the engine. And so if I really feel like I need to go faster, which I really don't, like, look at this. We dropped our RPS by, we're at 20. We're down to 8, okay? So think about how much less heat we're making. Think about how much less fuel we're burning. And look at our meters per second. We're at 54. Now, did it take us longer to get there? Absolutely. It took us longer to get there. But we're at 53. Now, I bet you I know how to make this go a little faster. Let's see. Let's go down to 35. See if this will speed up. No, I guess not. Maybe a little bit more. It's probably somewhere in there. Because, you know, I don't want to put too much load in this. We've reduced the effective torque of our engines, so let's see. It's going to take us longer to get up to speed, but we will, so I'm trying to trim us out. Let's get us trimmed up here. Okay, let's sit for a second. All right, so see the nose is dropping, so I'm just going to trim. I'm looking at this island as my reference. I don't have an artificial horizon here. Now notice the island's not changing position up, down. All right, so let's let it speed up. So our last time, our max speed was about 57. Let's say this is now 52. So that was 114 knots. So let's do 52 times 1.943844. So 101. So we've lost 13 knots of speed, but look at that. You know, we're somewhere, we've lost, a considerable amount of RPS, which is meaning that it's going to be easier to cool. We're up to 54 now. So you can see we're actually pretty damn close to our speed, but we're burning about half the fuel probably, and we're actually, creating about, probably less than half the heat. Because I think the heat might be exponential, I'm not sure. I haven't really looked at it in game, but so we're saving a lot of heat, and we're saving a lot of fuel burning. Now, I don't like my helicopters to be ultra efficient on fuel burn, so I don't tend to, make them too super efficient because I want them to be a little bit hungry so that, if you want something efficient, you'll take a ship or something else. But this is working well already. We've got a good speed. It's not blistering fast. Now, let's see if I can't get this to go a little bit faster. So, one thing I can do is the rotor, right, once we're in the air, the rotor is not doing much for us. Once we're in the air, once we're going fast through the air, the propellers are doing most of the work for us, and the wings are taking over the lift. And so one thing we can do is, let's try something here. All right, so we have two gearboxes here. So let's try this. Let me see the best way to do this here. Trying to think of the best way to do this and not cause myself problems here. All right, let's do this. Let's redo the pipe system. Okay, so I want a... let me see. Let's say a 3-to-1. Let's try a 3-to-1 of the rotors. This might not work. This is going to be funky, so we're going to send 3-to-1 to the rotors. All right. Let's go cut you here. I'm just trying to see where I need to cut. So I need to cut here. All right, and so I'm going to send 3-to-1 to the rotors. And so for every 1 rotation engine, we're getting 3 rotations of rotor. Now, I want to send, what do we have, 6-to-1 total? Yep. So now what I want to do is I want to send, because we probably don't need the rotor all that fast. So now let's send a 2-to-1 of this. So now what we have is 3 to 1 is going to the rotors. So 3 to 1 goes to the rotors. All right. And then it also splits and comes down here. Well, then it multiplies by 2. So we have 3 to 1 going to the main rotor, and we have 6 to 1 going to the propellers. The propellers are much smaller. We want the propellers on the wings turning faster than the rotor. So let's try this now, see if this works for us. I set them all up. Okay. So let's try that. So this should make the rotors on the wings move, or the propellers on the wings move faster, the rotor on the top move slower. Now that main rotor has a lot of blades. It's a 5-bladed rotor, right? It's like the guy in the canoe. The more paddles you put in his hands, right, the more work he's having to do. And the actual propulsion devices, the props, now I'm getting a little bit of jitter, and that's because the sensitivity now is coming into play a little bit more. We should be getting a higher RPS by a little bit there because we're doing less work. Let's see if I can get it at faster speed. So I've done this before as well, where I've actually... what I'll do is I'll actually either stop the work, the pitch on the rotor, so it's doing less work, or I'll actually make less energy go to the rotor once you get up to a certain speed. So let's see. All right, we're speeding up here. This may or may not change things. We'll have to see. But ideally, I want those propellers on the wings to be going faster than the main rotor on top. All right, now I have another thing I can do. So see, we're already up to 8.95. We were a lot lower before. We were at like 8 point... It wasn't a ton lower, but it was lower. Let's see if I can't get faster here. I have a sneaking suspicion this isn't working right. I have to look at it. All right, let's see what's up. I'm going to kind of change how I'm doing this here. Let's try something here. So let's go back to working. All right, and let's try something different. Different way to make this work here. Oh, you know what it is? I bet this is what it is. See where my... So this impeller right here, that is actually what's putting air into my engine. I bet as I cut down the RPS on that, it is actively... It's actively giving me less power. So I can't do that. Let me try something here. Yeah, I'm giving myself less air, which is giving myself less power. That will not work. Let's see. So one thing we can do is this. Can't go there. Crap. This is now too close. Let's see. Let's try something here. The problem is they make everything enormous in game. That's 1, 2. Let's do this. I'm going to try to do this simply here and see if I can't get it to work. So, oh, can't do that. Crap. All right. So I need to move this impeller is kind of the long and the short of it. I think that's causing me issues now. Can't go back anymore unless I go down right there. Am I using this? I'm not. Okay. So a lot of talking to myself here, just trying to figure this out, getting this working right. So let's see what I can do here. I'm trying to set this up again to work differently. Because I need to keep putting, so this impeller here is force feeding my air into my engines. And so I need that to turn at as high of a rate as possible. So let's do this. Let's tear this apart a little bit. I think I didn't set that up. That's fine. Okay. So let's rework this a little bit here. So we're going to go off of the... We're going to still go off like this, so then we'll go up. Let's go like this here. Trying to think of the best way to hook this up where it's not a pain. So yeah, we're going to have to go up is part of it. All right, so that goes up like that. And I need to go up and then send it to the rotors. So this has to go like, and then probably we'll put the split off here. Because what I want is a higher gear ratio going to my, I want a higher gear ratio going to my puller props than I do to the upper rotor. Because that's a lot of wasted energy. I don't need to be wasting that much energy. All right, so now let's path this out here. All right, so that goes there, and then it's going to go down. All right, we'll grab a second gearbox. It needs to face the engine. JJ, there we go. So this should be a 3-to-1. The first one, 3-to-1. 3 times 2 is 6. That's now a 6-to-1 gear ratio. Good. That was where we were before. All right, next what I need to do is I need to do a PTO, a power takeoff here. And this is where my impeller is going to go. All right, so now I need my impeller. Cut the impeller and drag it over here. All right, and I need to go up like that. All right, so, and the whole reason is the faster, I could go to pumps. I don't like it. People will say, hey, pumps are more efficient. I know, I'm well aware pumps are more efficient. I don't care about efficiency really right now. What I care about is I tend to like to do them realistically, whether that, I know it's not as good, but I like to do things realistically. I like to have it like they should be, which is, you would, this is supercharging. You would have a belt-driven supercharger that would be feeding your system. So, I'm aware that if I put just a regular pump, I get higher flow rates, but I don't really care. I want it to be like this. So, you should build how you want to build. All right, and then this is going to go, I need to find the right block right there. Cut that. All right, that should be air in. I'm just going to verify. I can do that really quick. Fluid in. Yep, that's correct. All right, and then this is a scoop. All right, there we go. I already fixed this one. All right, so now that should fix that. So this is now going to move the impeller at a 6-to-1 gear ratio because the power is going to come up here. It's going to go up to the top at a 3-to-1. So it's going to turn my rotor 3-to-1. Then it's going to come down, still at a 3-to-1. It's going to go in here. It's going to multiply it by 2. So now we have 3 times 2 is 6. That's going out to the propellers at 6-to-1. It's also going out to the impeller at 6-to-1, feeding the engine. So that should help with some power, I think. The other thing I can do is cut blade counts. If I want to take load off my engine, I want to decrease the load. What I can do is I can lower blade count. Again, that's like telling a guy he has to move a paddle in each hand, and you say, okay, now just move it with one hand. He can go faster. So that lets you know you should be able to go faster. So we'll test it out. Doesn't always work perfectly like it should, but we shall see. Just general tweakage here. Trying to get this running the way we want it. Okay, and so I forgot a key element here. So we need a throttle. All right, so now what is this throttle going to do? Well, this throttle is going to reduce the rotor, so the rotor is no longer stealing energy from us. We don't need that rotor once we get into kind of like airplane mode. And so at some point it'll be automated. I've done this many a time, making this so that when you get into airplane mode, it happens to the Rotodyne. As we get up to speed, the Rotodyne's rotor will receive less power from the engines, and what that does is it makes it so that you're not stealing it from the propellers. We don't need that. Once we get up to speed, the wings and just our forward momentum will keep us in the air. We don't need the rotor to keep us in the air as much. So what I'm going to do is once I get moving forwards, I'm going to start reducing the amount of clutch going to the rotor because we don't need it anymore. All right, very nice. So everything seems to be running better now. Yep, that was definitely an issue, was the... let's see what this is hooked to now. I forgot I didn't change the... Okay, so this now is speed. Let's get this going here to fix this crap here. I forgot I changed all these things. Speed, meters per second. Okay. So I'm making it this one now just because the lines don't cross. All right, good. And then this is going to be RPS here. So I can read my RPS and I can read my speed. I forgot I didn't have those dials, so those are very helpful to me. I forgot to put the extra cat on there too, which that cat could have choked you. Remember I was saying you don't want to do more than one thing at once. I added a cat which will reduce exhaust flow. Alright, so let's see. So see, this is already up to... Okay, this is still set to 20. So we probably have too high of our rotation speed. Let's see. So we should get a good speed now because we're going up to 19 RPS. See how it's going crazy? That's because the rotor speeds are over 60. So they're way too fast. Alright, so we don't want that going... Let's try like 13 at most. Alright, let's try that at 13 and see where we get. So this is just like the tuning phase. You know, I definitely want a certain speed area. You know, I think that Katie would go like 130 miles an hour. I like something similar, especially seeing we have two props here. I like this to go a little bit faster. This has a bigger motor than Katie did too. So see, now we're at 11.88. Good, so that's pretty good. So let me see if I trimmed it. I didn't. Okay, good. All right, so now we're going here. Let's go ahead. I'm going to try sticking some prop in. Let's go up to 20 and get stabilized here. All right, nice. So you notice we're not shaking. All right, so if you put your rotors over 60, that will often shake you out. So you don't want a rotor velocity over 60. It's causing too much. It's causing too much effectiveness on your rotor changes, essentially. All right, where's my speed? I changed my speed over here now, of course I did. So let's go ahead and I'm going to retrim this. So I just want to trim so that we're, you know, pretty much level on the horizon. Let's go up to 30. We're up to 70 meters per second. As you can see, we're going much faster now. See the shake? Okay, now the shake is due most likely to the gyro sensitivity being too high. Generally, I drag those down. I've yet to do that. So when people are wondering why they go faster and they get that, well, your propellers or whatever, see, it's the elevons doing that. When it's doing this and it's flapping like a crazy bird, that's because your gyro sensitivity is too high. It's like having too high of a P factor. Essentially, the gyro is acting like a PID. And your P factor is too high. If your P factor is too high, it's going to go past where you want it to go. It's going to go past where it should be going, and then it has to go way back past where it should be going to correct it, and it flutters like this. But as you can see, we're getting much higher speeds there. 72. Again, quick math is times 2, but I'll do 72 times 1.943844 equals 139.95 knots. So, like, my guess was pretty close. 140 knots. And we could probably actually go faster than that. So 140 knots is a nice speed. I'm liking this. So this is going well. Starting to figure out what the max RPS I want. Figuring all that. Now remember, we didn't even reduce the amount of power going to the rotors. What we need to do now is go in here. So the pitch is causing us problems. See, it's at 100%. The gyro, I almost never keep that at 100%. I tend to go down like 20. So let's go 20s. This yaw may need to go more because our yaw is needed to control those propellers so that we're not to counteract our torque. So we may need that a little on the high end, but yaw generally does not oscillate too much. It's pitch that will oscillate a lot in games. So I tend to go around 20, sometimes 15, but I think you'll notice when we get up there. So okay, we still have pretty good yaw authority. We're having a little bit. See how it's wants to yaw left now. See how it's trying to yaw left on us, and it won't correct itself. That was because I dragged that down too far. So let's go back up to like 70%. Test it. You know, so that's too low, and part of that is, remember, I clamped those. They can go a maximum of 30% of deflection, so they're not using all of the prop's ability. And so I need that P value essentially higher because all it has is 30, so it really has to get to that max value quickly. Cat's trying to lay on my mouse. All right, so it's still yawing a little bit. I'll fix that later. We might be all right with 100% gyro yaw. I have to play with it and see. One thing I could do is I have on the Rotodyne, I actually made it myself, where what I did was I put an angular rotational sensor in there, and that's how it controls the propellers, but this way actually seems to be working better. Whoa, what's going on here? All right, so the reason why it dipped the nose like that is the elevators don't respond as fast as they used to. Notice the roll is now responding a lot slower than it used to. All right, so let's try to get back to, where were we, like 30%? Let's get back to 30% here, but we're not oscillating. So what we want to do is we want to increase that to when it's oscillating, and then we want to just back it down. So 20% is probably not enough on roll, and it's probably actually not enough on pitch either. So probably go up from there. So we went from 100 down to 20. Well, it's somewhere in between there, probably closer to 20. See how like we're rolling uncommanded? That's mostly due to us changing that down. So the gyro's not doing as much smoothing as it was. Okay, so see, we're still pretty stable, but a little bit of tweakage and we'll be there and we'll be good. Let's check our speed. So still good on speed. Okay, so now let's check this. Let's go down to 30%. Try to see where my max speed is here. So part of what's slowing us down is every time we pitch up and it's kind of acting, see how it's rolling? That's all me correcting it is causing drag and it's slowing us down. So I'm trying to get us close to where I want to be. So let's go to 40. Let's see where we're at here. About 71 knots, 71 meters per second. That's 140-ish knots, a little bit less. So that should be all right to do some testing here. So now what am I going to do? So the clutch going to my top rotor is at 100%. And so that is stealing energy from us. The engine is also powering that rotor. Well, now that we're moving forward at like 140 knots, the wings and the horizontal tail plane, they're doing a bunch of lift. And so we don't really need that rotor to do as much lift. So let's start dragging this down. Let's go down to 50%. So that just barely any, so the rotor will still rotate no matter what when we're moving like this. You can get it stopped, but you have to use a brake. And so now that, in theory, should be using less power. We'll see if it actually, in practice, does it. Some of my craft I use this on, it works pretty well. Some does nothing. So we'll see. If it's not going to do anything really appreciable, I'll go ahead and scrap it and won't even bother with it. But if I can get some increased speed, which I'm not, so if I'm not getting an increase in speed by clutching out that rotor, there's no point in doing it. Sometimes it's worthwhile doing, sometimes I find it's not. So we're in a climb. I'm trying to make sure. We might be getting a couple knots, because right now we're about horizontal. Yep, so I think it actually gave us a couple knots, and that's because it's using less power, because it's not powering that. So let's go ahead and bring this back. You know, it's essentially, you know, it's trying to move, you know, it's like, imagine the guy in the boat again, right? You have two people in the boat now. No, let's say you have one guy in the boat. So he has 5 oars in one hand, and he has 5 oars in the other hand. You say, hey, man, just drop the oars in your left hand and just pull the oars with both hands right. And so that now allows him to get rid of a lot of that load, and he can go faster. And the same thing is true by essentially having to use a clutch on the rotor, so we no longer have to worry about that rotor. All right, so that's working pretty well. Let's see what I want to do. Gyro stuff. Let's get this restabilized a little bit. So let's go up to, so 20 is too low on pitch and roll. Let's go to 50. Let's go to 60. Because what I essentially want to do is I want to keep getting the number in between. So we know the numbers in between that we want is between 20 and 100. Now if I go to 60, right? If it's between 60 and 100, there's 40 on that side. If it's between 60 and 20, there's 40 on that side. So we know which 40 stack it's in. And then we can cut that in half again. So let's say it's on the left side. So now it's between 20 and 60, right? So we want to go in between there. So we go to 50. No, we wouldn't go to 50. What do we go? It's 40. So we go to 40. And then we would be able to work in between there. Is it between 20 and 40? Is it between 40 and 60? And then once we've worked between those numbers, we can keep working our way in. Yaw, let's keep yaw 100%. Yaw was fine. We didn't have any issue with yaw. All right, so let's get going. And so we'll fix this little stall issue, you know, with the engine stalling is what I generally do is, you know, when you're already asking for a high RPS, it's immediately trying to power way up, and you want it to maintain a kind of a slow power increase, and then you want a slower clutch addition, essentially. So what you do is you'd have your starting RPS value at 5 instead of currently at 13, and then you would, you know, slowly start adding in the clutch a little bit slower. And that way the engine could get up to torque specs. It would be producing enough torque, and then you'd be good to go. So let's go up to, so I'm just trimming. So as you notice, it's much more stable now. The gyro is doing more work. It actually, so let's make sure we don't get any flutter. We haven't got up to full speed yet, but notice we don't have any flutter on the, we're having roll problems. Still have the roll problem, so we probably need to go higher on the roll. Let's go up to 30 here. Yeah, so still, our gyro is too low for the roll. As you can see now, it wants to roll us to the right, especially. And I need to fix the yaw. There, I put in a yaw trim. Okay, let's look. So you can see our speeds. We're doing a good speed. We're seeing that we're much more stable. So we're going 72 point, say 73. Let's bring this all the way down, see if this increases. Okay, that's interesting. It's not. It's actually decreasing. That's weird. I find that... Okay, now it's going back up. All right. That's interesting to me that it reduced when... It could be that my nose started coming up. You know what? I wonder if this is what happened. I wonder if the rotor... As the rotor started... See, we actually are going faster now. I think what happened is the transition. So the rotor was producing some pitch, and then as I reduced that, the rotor stopped producing as much pitch, so then the elevators had to take over the pitch, which caused some drag. But as you see, now we're going faster again. So that does work, reducing the... So see, we're essentially... There's no power going to the rotor. The rotor is just turning via aerodynamic forces. And... so what's holding us up is actually the wings and the tailplane. And we're keeping a good speed, about 74, so I'll get an accurate number. 74 times 1.943844 is 143.8 knots. I'm quite content with that. And one of the reasons I don't want to go more than that is I want my planes to have purpose. If you remember, we built the seaplane. Well, the seaplane can go faster. And so the seaplane's job is to go fast. Its limitations is that it has to land in the water. It can't land on the land. Well, guess what? We just made ourselves a land vehicle. If this one could do everything the seaplane did, why would I take out the seaplane? So I don't like to make it so that my builds don't have any purpose anymore. And so that's why I tend not to do that. It's why I tend to build some limitations. And so what's the limitation with this? It can't land in the ocean. Alright, so what's going on here? Alright, so the rotor was helping us stay aloft a little bit, so not a ton. So the aircraft does not have as much lift as it used to, which isn't a big deal. But I see how the rotors are going really slow now. So essentially it's like a gyrocopter now. So the other thing I can do, which I often do, is this. Trying to see, can I... Okay, so see how the rotors are flat now? So I'm going to trim the rotors to be flat. And so the reason I'm doing this is it's reducing the load. I'm going to see if I can get a higher speed now. Alright, so I think I'm going to scrap the notion of clutching out the rotor. I don't think I'm getting enough return for the loss in performance. I'm only picking up maybe 2 knots. And so it's really not worth me losing the ability to use that rotor. And it's adding a lot of complexity for no reason. And adding complexity for no reason is never a good thing. And so let's go ahead and add the rotor back in. Yeah, so we don't really need to, we don't need to disconnect the rotor. I have some that are stop rotors, but that's mostly for RP reasons. All right, so we're back up and running now. Yeah, so that's really not changing it, which in real life it probably would. It definitely would. You could just, I don't know. Hard to say, actually. So we're doing all right here. So I'm really liking this craft. This is flying well. It's working well. As you can see, we're already in the air. All right, so one more thing I want to test before we go. Let's grab a quick screen shot. Maybe right towards Arecibo or something. I don't know. There we go. And so I think those one thing I want to work on. So we see our performance numbers. So our cruise is about 73, 74 knots. That's kind of a little bit of a... That's an area we know where we're at. So we know that's our speed. Should be 74, 70... 73, 74 knots. Let's go ahead and save this. And I'm going to actually save it as working. This is working well now. It's all set up. Now, what I want to do is this. So I'm going to add... Let's try this first, actually. So I was going to add a cat. The problem is the cats restrict airflow from the exhaust. Now, I could do exhaust deletion. I try not to do it when I don't have to. And so what I'm going to do here is this instead. I'm going to add a second exhaust on this side, trying to increase my exhaust flow. And hopefully I stop getting smoke, but I also don't lose exhaust flow and lose performance, because I don't, if that number goes below 73 to 74 knots, I know I'm starting to choke my engine and losing performance. Now, you wouldn't want the exhaust right in front of the air intake, IRL. I don't think it really matters in game. So I could try to put it up top. Can I put it up there? Theoretically, I could. All right, let's try it. All right, so I added the second exhaust. That should hopefully increase our exhaust flow. And so one way, see how it torques when we first start? Well, one way to fix that is the clutch on the rotor will not engage, giving us rotor clutch until essentially we get up to a certain RPS, and then it will start putting that in. Well, guess what? The propellers are already up to speed, and they can keep us from ever yawing like that. So that will be another nice feature with that. Let's go ahead to... One of the reasons why I'm using the same numbers, like 30% on the forward prop and stuff like that, is, you know, that's how I know that I'm gaining or losing performance. So you notice we're not smoking anymore, right? We were smoking before. We're not smoking anymore. So that's what I was trying to get rid of the smoke, and look at our speed. No deficits on our speed. And I think we're actually doing better. We are doing better, so we probably were not blowing enough exhaust. So we're doing pretty good, not by much better. We're like maybe half a knot better, so inconsequential. But I'm really enjoying this helicopter. This is working well. It's a good size. We're almost in time here. Let me do one final little testaroni, and we'll see. So let's go ahead back. But this flies beautifully. Like, dude, I'm banking and cranking this. The gyro could use tiny, minute little adjustments. I would say I could go up in all of my regimes except yaw. Yaw is already at 100%. And so because yaw is already at 100%, I don't need to worry about it. Roll's not too bad. Roll might go up 5%, and pitch I could probably use another 5% on. But not a ton. All right, let's start cutting back on our throttle there. All right, let's go into full helicopter mode. So our props, they have no prop pitch going forward. And so I just need to use my rotor to go forward now. So I'm kind of moving like a regular helicopter. And so you can see how this really helps us to go faster. We're doing like a good, I don't know, 20 meters per second, maybe at most, yeah, 20 meters per second. So we're going like 40 miles an hour, or we can go 140 or 40 knots. And we're going about 140 knots with those, with the puller props. All right, so the next test is going to be this. I'm just going to quickly launch the new home ship. I have no clue if this is going to fit. I didn't want to make this so it had to fit on the home ship. I might make a custom bespoke little helicopter for the home ship, for the new home ship later. I haven't decided yet. So it's not a deal breaker if this doesn't work. If it was a deal breaker, I would have made it initially so that it had to do that. But it's not something I want. This needs to have for me to be happy. So that's not something huge. Let's go ahead and grab it. And that crane might be a little bit in the way, but hopefully we can land. So again, this doesn't necessarily have to fit in the home ship. Would it be nice? Yeah. Is it the end of the world if it doesn't? No, not at all. Grab the pad seat. I forgot, I think. I don't know if personal damage is on or not. But you see how it's not rolling? It was rolling to the right a little bit. That's because that p-value, or the gyro number is now too low. That crane's probably in the way. I should be able to see. I'm just looking for scale. Will this fit on here? It's probably on the big side anyways. I doubt this fits. Ooh. See, like, I don't have that auto hover feature on at all. I have no way to click it on yet. So you see how, like, this is me just no hands on right now, nothing. So it's already behaving very well. And so if you get your helicopter or your airplane or whatever to behave well on its own, and then you put a gyro on, guess what? It's going to be easy peasy for that gyro to do its work. If it's already a nightmare, it's going to be a nightmare. Now, I've already built a VTOL for this home ship, so if this helicopter will not fit, which it's looking like it won't, I will just use that VTOL. So, but this is definitely, I think, too big. See, it's probably very iffy, but the rotors would probably hit on something. Let me get in first person. Wowza, crane. I'm always better in first person. Being a pilot, operating in first person, I can do much better in first person than in third person. Perspective-wise, I see, and like I was talking before, the other video about how when you get used to machinery, I don't need a bubble canopy. I know where my nose is. I know I'm not going to hit that crane. I know my nose, where it is in relation to the to that back railing there that I'm trying to avoid. So that just comes with experience, and I know it's about a meter off of my glass, and so I can kind of estimate where it's going to be. And I have techniques like I'm coming in at an angle here with my nose a little bit low, and that helps me visualize what I need to. I don't care about what's under me. I'm looking at the railings. I'm looking actually at the black strip under the railings. Now I'm starting to lose it and lose sight of it, and now I'm using a different reference. The top of the railings on my right side, and that's keeping me where I need to be. Now if I had auto hover, I could just click that on and this would be a piece of cake, but I'm going to do it by hand. So this is going to hit rotors 100%. So this is not going to fit on here, and that's fine. This will be pre-home ship. I figured it was going to be a little probably on the big side, but we do have a VTOL that will fit in this. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. This should hopefully be getting to the point, it's already flying up nicely. Hopefully get a coat of paint on it, hide a couple of microcontrollers, and then over time we'll put it on autopilots. We'll put on all different systems. But yeah, I think this is moving along nicely. So I hope you guys enjoy that, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.